I'm going to show you how to use oil pastels to create a realistic and delicious jelly donut. If you love art and you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe. The first step is always drawing that donut, making sure it's in the right spot, it's about the right size, and making sure the proportions match those of the donuts right next to it. I want my jelly donut to have frosting or icing, and I definitely want to put a bite mark because there's nothing more fun than drawing and adding color to jelly spilling out of a donut. Dough colors are so important. I'm really picky about the colors I use, so I actually bought another brand of oil pastel to use for the dough. I used my darkest color first. It's a rich chocolate brown, and I put that kind of at the bottom like a shadow and around the bite mark. I fill in with this yellow ochre. I call it with my students just yellow tan, and that goes all the way up into the icing line. At this point, it looks more like a bagel or one of those pretzels you get at the mall, and it's a little too yellow. And so white is going to be really important to bring the color to more of a pastry-like value. Go back with your brown to make sure there's a nice fade of dark to light and the yellow doesn't overtake that brown. It gives it this nice rounded effect, and it gives it a shadow at the very bottom like it's sitting on a table. With the white, don't go all the way down to the brown. Kind of fill in that satisfying line around the donut and then blend it with your yellow to give it that really beautiful color. White takes a couple layers. If you don't get it right the first time, go back and add it when your oil pastels are a little bit more dry. And going back and forth blending with your yellow and your white is the key to making sure your donut not only looks round, but it has that delicious dough color and it looks real, like you could actually eat it. Time for the icing. I'm choosing to do a chocolate donut. I think that they're delicious, and I think the browns are really fun to work with. The first step, I always tell my students, is the good job, sweetheart step. And what I mean by that is it's like a coloring book. Pick what color you want your icing to be and fill it in one solid color, not paying attention to value or shading. Stay inside the lines, just like you were taught in elementary school. I take a second brown, and this is the one from my first pack of oil pastels. It's a little bit more red, and you can see there's not a lot of difference in the two browns. They don't stand out as much as, say, that black and purple right next to it, but you should still have a value going from dark to light, or really going from dark to medium right there in the center. Just like with the dough, you're going to go back to that original color, and you just kind of soften the interaction between the two, making sure it's not just plopped on there, but you have this really nice fade where it's darker around the edges and it gets lighter, gets more of that red brown towards the center. With the dough, it's the same. The white's going to be a really key step, and bling bling, those highlights. Donuts are so shiny that you want to make sure that you really aren't scared to get your white in there. The key to oil pastels is blending, blending, blending. So just like you did before, take your second color and soften the interaction of the white to your medium brown. You want to make sure that, it's not just plopped on there, but it's spread out. It kind of gives it a nice fade. And then you go back and determine, where do you want those really intense highlights to be? If you're lucky enough to have a real donut sitting in front of you, pay attention to how the light hits it. Google image a donut and pick the one that has the best highlights. That's an awesome way to make sure you get it right. And just like with the dough, you might go back when it's a little bit more dry in a day or two, and you might really add that bling like you can see in the black donut to get that awesome highlight on there. Soften as needed, but make sure that they really stand out. The jelly is so much fun. I use purple and red to start with, and you want to think of this as where your darks and your lights are. I didn't have a jelly donut in front of me, so I Googled and I picked the one that I thought had the most interesting jelly. And I know that it's kind of on the edge of the corner here, or edge of the screen, but you can see how I'm blending from dark to light, purple being my dark, red being my lighter value, and making sure it's dark around the edges and on the bottom of where the jelly would be sitting on the table. Okay, now that I've adjusted it, you can see it better. White with jelly is key. I highly recommend looking at images or biting into a donut, and you want that white to be intense. Of course, you need to blend it in, and texture is really important. jelly is sticky and it's not smooth like dough or icing. And so kind of use your pastel in a different way to make the texture look different. Blend and get those colors in there. I added a little bit of blue and black for a little darkness and a little more vibrance. And I soften it so it's not just stuck on there. Okay, these aren't floating space donuts. They are sitting on a surface. And just like before, we're going to add a shadow circling around the bottom of the donut and the jelly. So think, where would the shadow be if this were sitting on a table? It would not be around the whole donut or even around the whole jelly. It's where the donut and the jelly is actually touching the surface. This is how to use oil pastels to make a jelly donut. You can use the same technique for lemon filling or custard, whatever style of donut that you would like. And please click the next video to learn how to make a donut without any icing at all.